I'm Josh.
And I'm Jen. Welcome to the Gospel Shaped Family Podcast.
Each episode brings biblical wisdom and practical conversations on parenting, marriage, and family. And we discuss how to disciple the next generation with a biblical worldview.
Whether you're raising children, shepherding a church, or longing to build a legacy of faith in your home, this podcast is for you.
Join us as we explore how to shape hearts, homes, and churches around the gospel, one conversation at a time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gospel Shaped Family Podcast.
Good to see you all.
It's a good day. Well, the holidays are approaching. Christmas and Thanksgiving, I should say that in a different order. Thanksgiving and Christmas are right around the corner. And today we're tackling the topic of how to teach our kids manners and some basic common etiquette. We know that Thanksgiving dinner is right around the corner.
You mean your children aren't like perfectly behaved and know how to act in public, and like just perfectly all the time?
Always perfect. Whenever I think of this, there's like this book series we read to the kids where the premise was that somebody said, those children act like they were raised by wolves, but then they were actually raised by wolves in the book.
Book series.
What was that book? I forget.
At Ash.
The Mysterious of Ashton Place. Anyways, I was thinking,
That's a good
wolves?
Series, yeah.
They were.
The incorrigible
children of Ashton Place.
Yeah.
That was a fun
They were
series.
raised by wolves.
They were raised by wolves.
They acted like it.
They did not know about manners or etiquette in really basic ways.
Yeah. Did you, were you trained with any kind of manners or etiquette growing up?
Oh, let me think. I don't know. I don't remember, specific like mealtime, please and thank you type of things. I remember, I was a musician, so I remember very easily learning concert etiquette. Like how to stand, how to sit, how to like applaud. I remember that stuff, but that's not like real life manners and etiquette type things. I'm sure my parents instilled those things, like say thank you. I don't remember it ever being very formal, but I don't know. Yeah. Your parents were so intentional.
Oh man, I had a ton in this area,
you had a lot.
I was raised mostly in Texas growing up, and we were trained to say yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir.
And don't get that in Minnesota.
And we moved to Minnesota, and I've got this Southern boy accent. I don't have it now. They ridiculed it out of me by now, but I would say yes ma'am, no ma'am, and people in Minnesota literally said, "Don't call me ma'am."
Yeah.
And I remember my parents had to sit us down and they said, they don't do that up here. Yeah. You need to stop saying that. They like untrained us for etiquette. But we were, my parents were in full-time ministry. And so there was a lot of training about how to
I'm sure.
look people in the eye and shake hands and interact. We sat in a lot of living rooms with, raising support for our family. And you don't want a child that's unruly and naughty and doesn't know how to operate. And I remember one point my mom wanted to teach us how to eat and sit at a table, like in a more of a formal setting. Yeah. And I remember she did a couple week training on how to set a table, where the napkin goes, where the fork goes, the knife, the spoon, how you sit at a table properly, putting a napkin on your lap, no elbows on the table. And, we think, it's like at this point, with our home, it's not a big deal, but there's always situations that a lot of us as adults end up in now where that is appropriate in some more business or formal settings, social, that it's like, wow, that has been really helpful in my life as an adult.
Yeah.
Many, many times.
Yeah, I love that. Well, one of my favorite quotes is from Emily Post. Emily Post is like the queen of etiquette. And she has this quote. It says this: nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I think I'll be rude today. Nobody says that. And most of us think of ourselves as being polite and kind, but there's always that situation when we're in a hurry or we're under stress or, we just get lazy and we don't always use the manners that we should. So we thought it would be great to talk about what are some common etiquette things and why are we teaching those to our kids? Because we don't want to be the person who is rude today.
Yeah. Yeah. So first reason, of course, is it simply is a reflection of the image of God and the dignity of other people, that it's honoring to them to treat them in a way that's respectful and courteous. And so this recognizes that.
Yeah.
What would another reason be, Jenny Penny?
Another reason is that the world we live in can just be rude. It can be rude. It can be angry. It can be unkind. And we don't want that to become the default for our kids. We don't want that to be something that they see as being acceptable. We want to be the antithesis of that. We want to be kind and loving to the people that are around us.
And not just rude, but also coarse and rude. I think of just what's on TV from like even in cartoons for kids, or a lot of kids movies will have characters farting or
like bathroom
burping.
humor.
You're going to get a laugh in a movie, and then that impacts kids thinking that that's normal and funny. And we've got 3 boys, so there's a lot of training in this area that happens, and we'll say to our boys, if you ever want to date or marry a woman, they're not going to appreciate that. Like you're going to, need to move out.
Girls don't love the fart.
Every guy, I won't say every guy, but most guys, we've been there, and and we've had to get trained in this area. But our world just is formational in this way with our kids in a negative way. So we have to do some counter formation training in their life, or otherwise that becomes the default, I think.
Sure.
And so we're also preparing our children for every situation, and we like to say we're helping them get ready to dine with kings or with queens. More than likely that may never happen, but in the event that we end up sitting down with individuals that are in that kind of level of influence, we want our kids to be comfortable, fluent, have confident, and we have had at times we have had the opportunity to be in situations like that where political figures or other influential figures. I'll just share a funny story of our son John. So I graduated with a PhD from Southern Seminary, and Southern Seminary, the president is Al Mohler, and one of the things Al Mohler does when you graduate with a PhD, it's only the PhD students. He invites all of the PhD students and their family over to his house, and he puts on this very formal,
so beautiful.
This just
Party.
hors d'oeuvres, hors d'oeuvres, charcuterie in the back, like white tent. People,
in his backyard.
They've servers with wearing very, very fancy things.
His home is like a 2-scale model of Mount Vernon.
Yeah, of where George Washington lived.
Yeah,
I mean it's a replica. So
it's great.
We've lived in the country for a very long time, and so. Our kids, when they're little, we have allowed them to go to the bathroom outside.
We were potty training
John, yes, as boys. But we hadn't trained him in some certain ways in the area. So we were at Albert Mohler's house.
Fancy party.
Outside with all this stuff. And I look, and John's by a tree with his pants down to, he's like 2 or 3 years old at this time. Like, pants down to his ankles, going to the bathroom. On the tree, and at Albert Mohler's house, and I'm like, like not Albert Mohler, you're like mortified as a parent, and we look back at that now and we laugh because it's 2 or 3 year old, but if that is a natural default for our kids, and even potentially for us as adults, that we want to prepare our children for each and every situation that they are going to be in. And this kind of common etiquette manners will prepare our children well to succeed in those kinds of situations. So maybe parenting fail on our part there with that. But I don't know.
He was so little. I'm going to give us grace.
Yeah. All right, Jen, let's switch to a different segment. And this one today is What Are You Reading? So what's been on your reading list lately here, Jen?
I've read a couple different things. The book that I brought to the table to share today is actually a book that I'm reading out loud to the kids right now as a part of our homeschool. And I'm sure we'll talk more about how we homeschool in the future, but I like to have a book going at all times, preferably a couple. We have 3 books going right now in our homeschool. But right now I'm reading out loud this book. If you're watching by video, you can see it. I'll hold it up. It's by Patricia St. John, and it's called Twice Freed. And it is basically a retelling of the book of Philemon. So it takes place in the time of the New Testament. And I won't give away the whole plot, but there is a boy. The main character is a boy, and he is a slave, and he learns that his father was actually a witness to the stoning of Stephen, and that experience transformed his family. And it is just an amazing story. I'm reading it out loud. Our kids this morning, our 16-year-old popped in just to listen. And he was, he hasn't been there for the beginning.
He's in college.
He's in college. He's doing
we do
college
like
classes.
dual credit here in Minnesota.
Yeah, so he doesn't, he's not always there for like read aloud time. He was like, that sounds juicy, so he liked it. But I would recommend Patricia St. John. Her books were out of print for a while. There's a publisher called 10 of those.
Yeah, 10 of these. They're from the UK.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
I like
We've
10.
spoken with them. They are so delightful people. And they have brought Patricia St. John's books, I think, all of them back into print. This is an older version. I'm not sure when this was printed. The original came out in 1970. I'm just looking at the copyright. But this edition is older, but they've done a whole different printing of all of her books.
Yeah.
So would recommend Patricia St. John. This is a great family read aloud, or if you're just looking for something to read, even a fiction, it's great. I would fully recommend Twice Freed.
Glorious.
Mm-hmm. It's a fun one.
All right. Well, I'll share what I'm reading. I just finished this book. It is called Do Fathers Matter? What Science is Telling Us About the Parent We've Overlooked. And I look at that question.
Do fathers
and
matter?
I laugh a little bit because as a Christian with a biblical worldview, of course, we go, yes. Do we even need to ask this question? But this is written by a non-Christian. It's interesting that he has decided to ask that question. And I would say out of a 10, I might give this book a 2 or a 3 on a scale.
Is it 3 generous?
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed with it. So not a high recommendation. I'm going to share a few things out of it, and then you've got the good stuff from this book. So,
okay, that's good. I should have read a book that I don't recommend.
Yeah. So sometimes, not every book we read is a home run.
Home run.
But I found there are a few helpful things in here that I did think were interesting. He talks about the records show that fathers were and are widely overlooked in scientific studies. He said, when he put fathers in a search, he only pulled up 15,156 studies that had anything to do with fathers. When he put mothers in a search, that got just under 100,000.
Wow.
And maternal pulled up 279,000 entries. Paternal brought up only 1/10 of that many. So
Why is that?
You're getting to see it hardly. Fathers are about 5 to 10% of what is studied with mothers, and very limited. I found that actually to be quite helpful.
Yeah.
Let's see, I have a couple more things here. He talks about one of the things that has happened with fathers is they're just neglected in a lot of areas in science. And this, if you know anything about psychology, anybody that's studied developmental psychology, you'll know the name Bowlby with attachment syndrome, attachment theory, kind of what helps the relationship of an infant and young child and a primarily mother develop, and what causes the attachment not to happen. Well, Bowlby, in his study of attachment theory, he doesn't even address fathers at all, which is really interesting. And this is what basically Bowlby says: the role of the father was basically believed to provide support for the mother, and he's a very big supporting actor. Like, that's your job.
Wow.
Put money on the table, help mom, but you really don't have much of a connection with your children in any good way. I'll give you a taste of the. This is written by a full-on naturalist, evolutionist, not a Christian whatsoever. These are the kinds of things from a biblical worldview. We need to be super discerning when we read books like this. And there are some helpful things that we can pull from books like this. But here's one thing that he says. He says the ultimate purpose of good fathering is to ensure the survival of children. So we think, from a scriptural perspective, is that accurate? And we can resoundingly say, in part, but in total, no. It falls drastically short. Now, of course, the Bible talks about the parent's role is to care for the physical needs of a child.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a small part of it. But if that's our focus and we're neglecting the heart, the spiritual, the eternal focus, and we take care of the physical needs, at that we've fallen horribly short. We have failed as a parent.
Yeah.
With what is most critical, most important. So if you can see on here, I don't know if you can see it next to that on the book I wrote. Nope. that was all I wrote next to it. I sometimes, I have these books that I read sometimes like this that are ones I don't agree with. And if I'm underlying stuff, I always wonder if somebody picks this up, like if I die or my kids come and pick this up off my shelf and they think, did Dad agree with this? I make sure I write stuff in the margins.
No.
Nope. Or I'll cross out stuff and write what's scripturally true, true in them. So do fathers matter? I feel like I could have written a book on this like 10 times better than this guy, because the Bible gives us so many reasons why fathers do matter that we're not addressed here. But my takeaway from this is, if anybody listening to this feels like, wow, I'm trying to figure out where to emphasize some research, some resources. There's a lot out there for mothers. There's not a lot out there for fathers. And we know as the father goes, so goes the family, so goes the church, so goes the community. And part of our problem in this country right now is we don't have strong men. We're not raising strong young people to be godly men who lead their families, lead their churches, and so we need to be doing that as
So did he say,
families.
From a secular perspective, did he say we need to emphasize fathers? We need to?
He largely emphasized their value in what you just said, what I just said, but that was largely the extent of it. They bring value in emotional stability. They bring value in, the survival side. It was all materialistic kinds of things, but it didn't expand beyond that. So,
Wow. Well, I'm glad you didn't recommend that book.
No,
I'm glad. That seems like a literature book.
Yeah, but I appreciate he's at least shined the light on that. I didn't realize fathers were neglected to that degree.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. let's take a break to thank Renew Nation, the sponsor of this podcast. If you've benefited from the Gospel Shaped Family Podcast, consider making a tax-deductible donation to Renew Nation today. Your generous donations make this podcast and our work to help children develop a biblical worldview possible. If you've enjoyed the episode, you can support us by leaving a review. This helps the podcast grow and reach more families. Now back to the show. Let's transition back to etiquette and manners. So Jen, what would you say are some of the essential etiquette and manner skills that we have said this is important, we need to convey this to our kids?
So we've kind of come up over the years with different lists of things that we want our kids to know and to just kind of like come easily to them. I'll kind of tick these off, and then you can interject if you want to say anything about any of them. But they are saying please and thank you, holding doors, opening doors, especially we want our boys to be those people who will offer to open the door for the people around them. We encourage our children to address adults as Mr. or Mrs. when that's appropriate. And it's funny because kind of like you said before that your parents were like, no, you don't have to say no, ma'am, and yes, ma'am. And a lot of times we'll get parents who will say, no, just call me
first name
by their first name. And we'll still encourage our kids to say Mr. or Mrs. I think until they get a little bit older.
Yeah, when they're about 18.
Yeah.
Actually, it was just funny. Our oldest, just a year or two ago, said, I think I'm old enough now. I don't need to say Mr. and Miss. I think I'm getting into, I'm like an adult now. I think I'm kind of a contemporary. Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. Yeah, so I think that's kind of like familiarity. I don't know. But yeah, so we encourage our kids to say Mr. or Mrs. Saying, excuse me, instead of interrupting. Excuse me. We work on this one a lot still all the time. Please say excuse me. Or wait, interrupting. Sneezing or coughing into your arm versus your hand. Being able to say no in a gracious way. So, no, thank you, or I'll pass this time, or just being able to have that vocab to say no. Just smiling, having a pleasant demeanor, looking people in the eyes, and just being able to make a connection with people when they're speaking. Answering questions with a question. So, for example, if an adult asks, "How are you?" Teaching our kids to respond, "How are you?" Or
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So just, giving them the freedom and that skill to answer with a question. Obviously making introductions, introducing other people, and being aware in social situations. Oh, maybe you don't know, or maybe you two don't know each other's names. We've also encouraged sometimes for our kids to say their name to somebody who they think maybe might not remember the name. Oh, by the way, I'm, so-and-so, but just having that awareness, not everybody remembers your name on the first try. And then just a lot of table etiquette, napkin in your lap and sitting up straight, and, how are you reaching? Which way are you passing? Chewing with your mouth open, table manners and things like that go a long way. And especially going into the holidays, you really want to have a handle on, what do we expect of our kids at Thanksgiving dinner? What do we want it to look like? But those are the things that we've identified as really being a priority.
And we try to model that. Our kids will replicate our behavior in these areas. So if we're if we're doing these things, they'll see that. And as it gets reinforced, obviously, as we verbally teach it, but then as we're just doing that, it becomes like second nature over time when there's consistency in these areas. All right, so let's talk about the how-to. How do we actually train a child in some of these areas? What would you say to that, Jen?
I would say the best one is just practice. If this is something that you're going to be intentional about, we just want to make sure we have certain manners that we're working towards. Just practice. So if you want to have a certain outcome with even say your Thanksgiving meal coming up, you could absolutely practice at home with this is how we're going to sit. Let's all put our napkins on our lap. Let's look at where the silverware goes. Let's talk about after our meal, how much food is on the floor afterwards. And so practice is essential. And even in social situations, for some of the things we've talked about, even just gearing up beforehand, like, oh, you're going to be meeting somebody. So stick out your hand and make an introduction, say your name, give a smile. And so practice really is what it takes. And it does not need to be arduous. It doesn't need to be a huge deal, but it's just a gentle nudge to remember that this is what we're going to do and make it fun.
Make it fun. There you go.
Yeah.
There's some really great books out there that help with this, and you actually brought one.
This is my favorite one. This is such a cute book. This book is called Manners Begins at Breakfast, Modern Etiquette for Families. And it is just a very delightful book with very practical ideas for teaching manners. Like I just flipped it open and this one is like a little drawing. The artwork in this is phenomenal. But it's a picture of, this is what my silverware looks like when I've paused my meal. And this is what my silverware looks like when I've finished my meal. And so the artwork is colorful and it's beautiful. And it's more so meant to be a book for parents, but they would work through it with their kids. Like this is an illustration on how would you break bread. So if somebody serves you a bread basket, are you going to like take your knife and saw the bread? No, you're just going to break it and gently put the bread on your plate. But there's, sections for everything about dining, pets, things in your home. There's some interesting like Q&A about like how do I handle certain situations? Just such a great book. So we've utilized different resources.
Yeah,
like this
that's a
over
very
time.
good one. We mentioned Emily Post already.
I love Emily Post.
Yeah.
I always used to read her column when I was younger.
Yeah. So hers is called Etiquette, Manners for Today. No, is that? Yeah.
Yeah, Etiquette.
Emily Post.
It's like a white book.
Yep.
It's really pretty.
Manners for Today.
Mhm.
And there's other ones out there as well, but those are some of the ones we recommend.
Yeah. And those are good for us as parents, but I'm sure our kids would love paging through them. I'm sure that if you put a book like Manners Begin at Breakfast on your coffee table or just somewhere in view, it's really beautiful. These books are beautiful, even the Emily Post book. And so my guess is that your kids would love to just like page through them and look at them. And sometimes it's kind of fun to think like, how would I handle this situation? What would it look like? And so using some fun resources is a great way to go.
Great way to go.
Yeah. The next one would be to take an etiquette class. In our area, there are etiquette classes offered all the time. I see them in our community ed. Our church does this through our homeschool group. They have different groups they'll bring in and they'll do a big etiquette dinner where they set the table and the children learn how to sit and to do all the things. And so that could be a really fun experience to do with your family. Again, making it fun, making it memorable. And so doing some of that, kind of like your parents did with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was super helpful.
Yeah, totally.
The last thing we'll mention is don't be afraid to ask if you're in an environment or a situation and you're just not sure, like what should I do here? What's appropriate? What's the correct etiquette? Just ask whoever's around and they will probably give you some guidance in the right direction. That's true for us as adults, but good advice that we can give to our kids. And I'll get asked this even from time to time. People say things like, how should I address you? As a doctor, I'll often go out to different places. Should I call you Dr. Mulvihill? And, no, you don't need to call me Dr. Mulvihill. Josh is just fine. But some people, they might not think that same way. So when, we, for a long time, would go to literally every single monthly city council meeting. We did this for 6 years in our city before we moved out here to the farm. And, we needed to know What's the correct etiquette when you come into a city council meeting? When do you speak? How long do you have? How do you
Address the
how do you
council
address
members.
the council? And there's special etiquette and ways to act there. And we just asked the mayor, asked the city council members, and they were very gracious.
Yeah,
to-
I remember even being like at a girls' night out, and we ordered a bunch of appetizers at the table. The ladies ordered like a bunch of appetizers, and they all were like delivered at the same time. And the gal sitting next to me was like, "What are we doing here? We're passing these appetizers." I was like, "Yeah, take a little bit of each one. We're gonna pass around, put it on your own plate. Don't eat off that plate." And so just ask, easy,
Just ask.
and
It's
then
helpful. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and we'll just wind this one all up with, if you found this really helpful, the series that we're doing here right now is coming out of our book, 50 Things, where we have 50 different things to train children to be godly adults.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the 50 things is etiquette and good manners, and same with friends that we did the last episode, and family worship and corporate worship, and these all come together to help our kids develop into godly individuals. And this, of course, is a small piece of that, but it is, it's a portion of that. And so if you're looking for a helpful resource towards that end, we would commend that to you. It's available at renewnation.org. All right, I think that does it for today.
it.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and
Thanks
we
for being
will
here.
see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Gospel Shaped Family Podcast. Please share this episode and give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts.